Hello, everybody. I'm Steve Johnson. Welcome to Digital Works TV. And our guest today is Bill Lozier, who works for MITRE, a federally funded research and development center. Been working there for 7 years. So before we get to anything else, since I didn't know, and I'm assuming other people won't know, what exactly is a federally funded research and development center? What is it?
Okay. First of all, we're not a company. We do not work for profit. We are a nonprofit corporation, not corporation, but an organization rather. We're not like Lockheed or Northrop Grumman. We do not compete for government contracts. We are set up as trusted advisors to the government on technical issues.
Okay. So you are a systems engineer, correct?
That is correct, sir.
So do you advise the government? And by the way, when you say the government, do you mean the Department of Defense or whatever agency needs you? Who do you mean
That
when
is
you
correct.
advise the government? Whatever agency needs you?
Well, I've only worked here in Huntsville, so I've only worked directly for the Army here at Redstone.
Okay. Okay, so
And
go ahead.
if you allow me to give a public service.
Absolutely.
Although I work for MITRE, in this interview I do not speak for MITRE, nor do I speak on behalf of any government agency.
Okay, well.
What I tell you is purely my own opinion.
Okay. Well, yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, we do appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
On behalf of yourself. But you're here because you have expertise and knowledge of things that we're crucially involved in, like model-based systems engineering.
Yes.
And MBSE is one of the things that you advise the Army on, since that's who you
Yes.
said you advise. So how do you do that? What do you do with model-based systems engineering? What kind of advice do you give?
Best practices for modeling. What is the best utilization of a systems model? A lot of people just build a systems model for the sake of building a systems model, which is not correct. It should be question driven. You should have, for example, in the procurement of a defense acquisition article, you have certain questions you would like to direct to the contractor.
Yeah.
Now, the best evidence should be found, if possible, in a systems model. So it is not so much how you construct it, but how you use it to derive answers. You have to construct a model in order to be able to answer those questions. So it behooves you to know what the questions are first so you can build the correct model.
Okay, I feel like we've strayed into engineering stuff here, which is not my area of expertise, but obviously yours. So does the government need to be given, well, obviously they do, or you guys wouldn't be around, but why would the government, the Army, or an Army agency need advice like this? I mean, they have systems engineers, and you are a systems engineer, correct?
That's correct,
Okay,
sir.
so they have systems engineers. Why do they need advice on this particular topic?
Well, they are engaged in a lot of activities, reporting to superiors
Yeah.
and doing that stuff. They are not really practiced engineers. I've spent over 45 years, let's say, actually building, delivering, and getting signed off articles to the government. I've worked for about every defense contractor there is.
Yeah,
out
MITRE's
there.
not your first job in this
No,
industry.
it's certainly not my first job.
Okay, but I would expect that the fact that you have worked for a lot of companies is a real good thing when you get to the point where you're having to give advice to other groups of engineers.
Yes, I can tell you about every trick that contractors use to get more time and money on their side because I've used them.
Okay, so in the model-based systems engineering, MBSE,
Yes, sir.
You're an advocate, I would assume.
It took me a while. before working in MBSC, I was on a technical fellowship at NASA working on the Constellation program, doing software. And I ran into a guy named Chris Corbin who taught me UML. And I found it
Okay,
very
what does that stand for?
uniform modeling language.
Okay, okay.
And I found it very good at capturing a design. Prior to that, we'd been using stuff called pseudocode, which was everybody made up their own variety, and it meant just whatever they decided it would mean. But with UML, you had a consistent representation of your design prior to actually going into coding. And you had something you could talk to, and it had syntax to it, so you can make it correct. And then we got bombed. Obama shut down the Constellation program, and so I went out looking for a job. And at the time, there were no software jobs available. So I took a job as a systems engineer with Computer Science Corporation, working at a program office, doing an acquisition.
Yeah.
And while I was trying to get on board and understand things, I just grabbed the tool I just learned, which was UML, and applied it to relating terms that I was hearing.
Yeah.
You know, you got this system, you need to interact with this system, it did this. And so I'd capture it in a model. And it helped me gain understanding to the system. And I did that for a period of time. And then I ran to a gentleman by the name of Monty Porter. He said, "You really need to look at SysML." I'm going, it's just another language. It does the same sort of thing. Why would I want to do that for? Well, it has more capability in it. And, well, these guys are just trying to sell more books. And so I said, okay. Begrudgingly, I went and started doing it. And when it came to being able to use the model to verify your design, to do checks on it, and able to do checks on your requirements, has the engineering choices you made going to meet your requirements prior to actually building it? And also that's when the light bulb came on.
Yeah.
This actually has benefit.
Okay.
And so at that point in time, I really became an advocate for, this has merit. You can actually get something out of this.
So do you have to spend much time advising the government that you guys need to do more of model-based systems engineering? Everybody needs to get on board with MBSE. Is that something you advise on, or are the people you're dealing with already doing that? You're just trying to help them do it better?
In some cases, I wind up actually just teaching the government and the contractors how to do systems modeling with SysML. Because even though it's brand new, people are just learning it.
Yeah.
And so I'm always trying to get them to understand, no, you just don't model for modeling's sakes. You're actually modeling to answer questions.
Okay. Does any of your trusted advising end up going through the government agency to a contractor somewhere, a company that's doing work for that agency, I guess on the other side of it,
Yes.
product?
Yes.
So am I correct, you end up advising through the government to someone else?
Yes.
Is that challenging, frustrating, or fun? Which is that?
A bit of both. Sometimes your input, they feel like it's not warranted, not needed, but it's the experience. The avenue you're going down is going to lead to a lot more frustration and may not give you answers to questions.
Yeah. So you said the light came on for you. I expect that you've seen a few lights come on in the last 7 years when you're talking about, when you're giving advice. Would that be accurate?
Yes. Well, remember, I did software for over 35 years.
Yeah.
I was a veteran of what they call the OOPS wars. I started out as a young software engineer learning programming languages, Fortran, Pascal, C. And then there was a early avocation at that point in time when I was just coming on board for object-oriented languages. And when I saw what was going on with systems modeling, I thought, I've seen this before. Some technology that can transform an industry. Object orientation has transformed software engineering into less of an art and more of a engineering practice.
Okay.
And I believe model-based systems engineering can be that type of a innovation. It can transform systems engineering into more of a stricter engineering discipline.
Is it doing that? I mean, it can. I guess, is it doing that now? Is it one of those things where maybe when you start thinking about it, it was like this, but it's slowly going like that?
It's a new methodology.
Okay.
It's young.
Yeah.
Things like this go through a maturity cycle. Nobody's ever actually applied it to a full acquisition from concept to initial delivery and fielding. It's never been done before. So how do you actually do that? Nobody really knows. They know pieces and parts of it, but getting it all to work together uniformly just hasn't been done yet. So it goes through a maturity process.
You've been part of an ongoing effort to get companies to come together and do things in a similar fashion.
Yes.
Okay. So can you tell that companies are getting that they understand that, or maybe they understand, don't want to do it, but can you tell there is a realization that if everybody does it the same way, it's going to work better?
I think people do, but companies don't.
Okay. Okay, so where are we on that?
Yeah, the companies still want to maintain their competitive advantages, by hiring the best people, the people who are standing out in the community, and holding things close to their chests. And sometimes it is coming up that they're just not experienced as what they need to be.
Yeah. Well, so are you making any ground on this? I mean, you talk
I hope
about,
so.
But this is an ongoing effort to get people, and I'm thinking not only to understand the value of MBSE, but to practice it in a fashion where it does all the things it's supposed to do.
Yes.
I know I'm asking that wrong, but is ground being made?
There is ground being made. I have to say that. But we're now going through a complete change in the language. SysML 2.0 is supposed to be released this year. And it's a complete rewrite of the language.
And this is the language for modeling.
Yes. Say we're at version 1.7
Okay.
in SysML right now. And 2.0 is going to be the latest. Well, I always found that skills that you can apply helps you get the job.
Okay.
So if it's a job that necessitates using SysML 2.0, it's good to have that skill in your toolkit.
Okay. So what do you say to the folks who know that things are moving toward model-based systems engineering, but they're in the group that's pushing back a little bit because however they've been doing it, they'd say, well, it's been working. I don't really think we need to change, which is kind of where you were way back when.
Well, the tools are expensive.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to use it, which it costs. And then you need to have experience with the tool, which in turn costs even more.
Yeah. But it's you
so in some cases, yes, I would advise companies not to use systems modeling.
Why would you advise that?
If it's a short-term project just for a few things.
Oh, okay, but
and it kind of stands alone.
If they're going to be around for a while, isn't Maybe not use it for this project, but
And if it's tightly coupled to other systems that are currently being fielded, yes, then the need may be there.
okay. Do you think that companies should be thinking, well, we might not use it for this project, but we need to move in that direction to becoming to using model-based systems engineering? Do we need to move to that's what we're doing, or do you say you don't have to do it for this, but that is the future? Do you ever have that conversation?
It is the integration of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Everything's going digital rather than paper-based.
Yeah.
I can remember responding to a government proposal on the contractor side, and we would take and paste the wall with sheets of paper.
Yeah.
We would write down, well, this is what they're looking for, da 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 da, and then you'd put it up on the board, and people would come by and read it, and you'd put post-it notes on it. Well, I think we need to change this, we need to change that. That was all document-based. But my attention span doesn't go over 100 pages
Yeah.
at best.
Yeah.
And by putting it in a electronic form, all things schedules,
Okay.
cost, you can now do queries on it. Think of it as a database. Why do you build a database? In order to perform queries on it. And that's what digital engineering is.
Yeah.
It is a set of related databases so you can do a query on the database to get a consistent answer back.
Okay, would a systems engineer ever rather have, I'm asking this wrong. So it seems to me, if you're a systems engineer, and I am not one, but the being able to look at it on my computer and seeing how one model affects the performance, or one piece of the system affects the performance of the entire system, being able to see that rather than have to go in a room and look at some dude's Post-it note, I would think I would rather be able to see it on my computer.
And AI is also playing into this as well. I've seen one demonstration where the system engineer had a model in his computer, and he said, okay, take this particular valve and increase the diameter to 2 inches.
Yeah.
Now recalculate the flow rates and that sort of stuff. And it went through all that and said, the flow rate is blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it said, oh, by the way, though, we're now out of parameters for meeting this requirement here. Is able to string all of that information together. So he now has immediately the impact of that design change. So he's going, well, maybe we should back up to 1.5 inch.
Yeah. So, but you couldn't do that.
You could not do that.
Without digital, you can't do it, certainly not very quickly.
Before, you'd have to sit there and create another set of drawings,
Yeah.
do the math,
Yeah.
hand that off to someone else, and then they would do the relations back to the requirements. And, well, today, we don't even do that.
Yeah.
When we put a systems box into an airframe, we literally just walk out there and hook it up, and sometimes the wires don't match.
Yeah.
The cable assembly doesn't match what we have on the system we're trying to plug in. So they said, well, let's just make this change. They go ahead and they go through all that process, updating the drawings, reconfiguring things, and then they go, well, that actually caused this to happen. Let me give you an example. On aircraft, there is 3 parameters: size, weight, and power. And then there's the MILSTAT A10 requirement for a low temperature startup. So you always hear this argument, well, if we get to low temperature startup, we can add heaters to bring the system up to the because A10 goes down to -50. Commercial electronics always go down to -40. So the solution is, oh, well, if we get into that region, we can add heaters to it to bring it up to 40. Well, if you've gone down the road in your design, now you're adding some weight to it.
Yeah.
You've added additional power. And so you got to take that in consideration. And now that you've added this additional weight, your vibrational analysis may be off. You have to go back and redo that.
Yeah.
So with model-based system engineering, you can see the impacts,
Yeah.
not just the first order, but the second order and third order impacts your design changes.
So that's a really good advertisement for moving totally to MBSE, isn't it?
Yes.
So with that example that you've given, why would anybody want to continue doing it the old, and I was just as an observer, tedious way, which strikes me as it just causes, doing it the old way, I don't know. It just seems to me that it's just so inefficient.
One of the arguments we made for object-oriented design was it's supposed to make things faster.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't. It made things slower in the beginning.
Yeah.
But on the opposite end, on integration effort, it made things faster, easier.
Okay.
So you wind up spending less time there, but you spend it on the front end.
Okay.
In some cases, it became a wash. In other cases, it became a really game changer.
Yeah.
I believe MBSE is the same sort of way.
Okay.
You may spend more time on upfront resolving issues that you didn't know about at the beginning, but you'll gain time downstream.
Okay, so safe to say you're an MBSE advocate, and your trusted advice would be that companies, maybe an example of not doing it from time to time on certain projects, but in general,
In general, for major acquisitions,
it's where we need
it will
to
be an integral part. And everybody needs to come together and start having a common language and a way to exchange information.
Okay. So are we at the point where, the waves come ashore and, how waves do, and they're just about ready to tip over and crash? Are we to that point yet where enough companies are doing it, enough agencies are doing model-based systems engineering, that is the wave of the future, to carry my little metaphor?
Well, I understand the European Advanced Fighter has been using model-based systems engineering, and they're doing some wonderful things. They've got, over in one country, they're building the aft section of the airplane. Another country may be building the wings. And then they're bringing it all together in the factory, and it all melts together.
Because they had the models?
Exactly.
Okay.
And if you can remember, it wasn't that long ago when two countries were trying to build a bridge over a river and meet in the middle.
Yes, they didn't meet.
It was off by a little bit.
Okay, so model-based systems engineering, it's being used now, and is it fair to say if you're not using it, you're not on the edge, you're not on the cutting edge, so to speak. You're not with the future. You're not moving.
If I
with the
found
future.
myself in the system engineering arena, it would behoove me a great deal to be very well versed in model-based systems engineering.
And that is your trusted advice.
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll probably stop there then, because that's I like the European fighter example. That was a good one.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Lozier, thanks for being with us.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right. And thank you for
get
joining
something
us.
useful out of that.
No,
With all the coughing.
well, that's okay.
hacking.
It's that time of the year. Thank you, William Lozier, for being with us. And thank you for joining us on Digital Works TV. And remember, it works.